I'm just gonna come right out and say it. Scarlet Nexus is a solid game. The experience is overall fun in pretty much every aspect while avoiding several pitfalls that I've found in similar games. I was impressed by the depth of combat, the thoughtful character writing, and the exploration of the world building ideas they presented within the story. Couple that with a distinct visual style, and I think Scarlet Nexus is a memorable game that may be the launching point for future games. If it isn't though, I still think we came away with a fun game that is worth your time if you have interest in its brainpunk setting, action combat, or parallel stories. Scarlet Nexus is an action JRPG co-developed by Bandai Namco and Tosei and published by Bandai Namco. For this new IP, Bandai Namco brought together a team of various different staff from games such as the Tales series, Code Vein, and God Eater. The game was released on June 25th, 2021 for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. There was also an anime that launched around the same time. There is a console demo for those who want to give the game a try before purchasing, although PC players, as usual, have been left out. Upon release, the game got very consistent above average but not spectacular scores. Praise came in especially for the combat system, and criticism focused mainly on the side content. It's hard to tell how the game has done sales-wise, although it lost out in Japan during its release week to stiff competition in Mario Golf and Samurai Warriors 5. Hopefully it did well, but we shall see if Bandai Namco releases more figures after the game has been out for a little longer. As for what Scarlet Nexus is about, you pick between playing as either Yuito Sumeragi, the youngest son from the famous political family the Sumeragis, or Kasane Randall, a young woman with exceptional power and a mysterious background prior to being adopted by the Randall family. Both of them are rookies for the OSF, Other Suppression Force, an agency made up of people with powers and the last line of defense against the Others. The Others are mutant creatures that occasionally drop from a phenomenon above Earth called the Extinction Belt. The Others consume human brains and have driven the humans back into major cities within the country of New Himuka, with the only significant protection coming from the OSF. Yuito and Kasane will team up with other OSF members to defeat the Others, while also getting wrapped up in mysteries and plots behind the front lines in New Himuka and figuring out their strange connection. While you might not expect it from the game, I think one of the bigger standout features of Scarlet Nexus was its writing. I enjoyed how the writers seemed to give a lot of thought to constructing the society of New Himuka and how the OSF and its members fit into the broader culture. It's not incredibly detailed to the same extent as, for instance, the Trails series, but what's there is not only interesting but also usually relevant to at least one or more characters. That leads me into the other good aspect of the writing, which was the character writing. With both Yuito and Kasane being good characters and the rest of the cast standing out with their arcs and their character bonding moments, these events really gave all of the main cast a chance to develop, and I feel all the characters have a lot to appreciate about them and their place in the narrative. The main story scenario was also entertaining, albeit fairly generic as far as JRPG stories go. Still, Scarlet Nexus avoided many of the writing problems that I've seen in other games and kept me looking forward to each new story beat in both pathways. The pathway's main difference is simply getting to hear and see Yuito or Kasane's reactions and thoughts on the main events. There is enough divergence between the paths to make playing both worth it to get the best picture of the story, but each path does feel cohesive enough on its own. There are some events that are mentioned in one pathway that are actually shown in the other that I think enhance the overall experience. Plus, Kasane and Yuito have different relationships to the various characters that help you get a more well-rounded look at who they are as people. Lastly, for those of you who might be worried about playing through both pathways and how long that might take, thankfully the game has a robust New Game Plus mode that carries over your levels and items between the different paths. That makes the early game for the path you play second a lot easier and more enjoyable. I think Scarlet Nexus used the divergent story paths reasonably well, and both Yuito and Kasane helped carry their pathways, especially in the moments when their stories did not intersect. The combat, which was always likely to be the standout feature of the game given the emphasis on it prior to the game's release, was predictably a lot of fun, and a decent challenge at times as well. You control either Yuito or Kasane in combat and their psychokinetic powers, allowing you to throw various objects at enemies. In melee combat though, things are a little different, as Yuito uses a sword for powerful but short-range attacks, while Kasane uses daggers that give her range but less power than Yuito, although her psychokinetic attacks are more powerful than Yuito's to make up for that. The combat then centers around stringing combos of moves together with melee attacks and psychokinetic attacks. However, in order to defeat certain enemies or simply gain an advantage against them, Yuito and Kasane can use SAS, the Struggle Arms system, to borrow their allies' powers in combat. This applies to every ally they currently have, and not just the ones accompanying them directly in combat. These abilities can range from fire and electric attacks to invisibility and super speed, and each one has specific uses in battle. Certain abilities may be used more frequently, but there is actually great flexibility in what powers are most useful in combat depending on the enemies you are facing. This diversity in power usage is necessary to compete with the varied enemies that will challenge you. Scarlet Nexus is not easy, and you need to have some different strategies to take down each enemy you come across. There is no one-size-fits-all way to defeat every foe. The powers also tend to be best used to take down an enemy's crush meter, which allows Yuito or Kasane then to finish them off easily. These abilities, plus the main character's own attacks, paired with other mechanics like follow-up attacks that you gain after improving your bonds with your allies, or the dodge mechanic that gives you a moment of frozen time in which to press your advantage, makes the combat action-packed and fun. There are minor issues I had with it, mainly the frustrating moments when you would get stun-locked by enemies, but otherwise the combat was excellent. You will also expand Kasane and Yuito's abilities with the Brain Map, which is basically a skill tree centered around different areas of combat. I truly wish I could have completed the entire Brain Map when I played, because some of the later abilities are highly useful, but that would have required more grinding than I was willing to put into the game at the moment. Suffice to say, the Brain Map is going to force you to make some tough choices at times on what upgrades you use your points to get. None of them fundamentally alter combat, but they offer chances to keep up in the arms race against the others, and that's what a good skill tree does, expands your options in battle without erasing previous strategies and abilities. Not everything is about combat though, some of it is about hanging out with friends. This is mainly what happens in the standby phases between chapters of the main game. At this point you can upgrade equipment, replenish items, give gifts to allies, and complete side quests. But the biggest thing you can do, and the only exclusive one to standby phases, are the bonding events. Each standby phase, a certain number of allies will show up with bond episodes that you can sit through that give insight into characters, and along with the gifts can improve your bond level with them. There is also a team bond level that goes up alongside your personal bond levels with each ally, although the team bond level is a little finicky and the rewards aren't as useful, so you don't need to really focus on that. As previously stated, these personal bonds you develop have an impact on the gameplay side of things, with upgrades such as giving you follow-up attacks using that character's power, or extending the time you can use their abilities with SAS. Otherwise, they'll just be lounging around the hideout playing with all the things you've gifted, which can be amusing to see since the gifts usually fit their personalities and they try to stay active. That's the fun part of the side content. The other part is the side quests, and the reviewers weren't lying. This bit is rough. The side quests are either fetching items or defeating certain enemies in certain ways, and I gave up on it halfway through my first path. They aren't interesting in any way, and the rewards they give are negligible. Save some time and don't bother unless you're going for 100% completion. On to more positive notes, the style of Scarlet Nexus is evident from the earliest moments and stays consistent. They specifically called the game Brainpunk, and that is the sense I got from the world they created. The cutscenes look good, and the animation is also nice, although that might be because they saved money in the budget by having a good amount of dialogue happen in pop-up panels reminiscent of comic book style. These give Scarlet Nexus a unique look, but I do think the static nature took away some from important moments, although the most vital ones were proper moving cutscenes. It was an interesting choice that they committed to and really tried to make engaging, which just didn't click with me, but I don't think the style is bad on its own. Speaking of unique designs, the enemy design is distinct. I am fascinated by the others, and I'm suitably impressed by Masakusa Yamshiro's weird hybrid creatures. The UI, despite having a lot going on, especially in battle scenes, was easily understandable, and the visual cues for abilities were hard to miss. Good job by the visual design and effects team to make sure it didn't interfere, since it could have easily done so in a game like Scarlet Nexus with its numerous button prompts and active battle system. Musically, the game has quite a few different styles it cycles through that is still easy listening throughout the game. I was surprised that the soundtrack sounded at its best in its bouncy and fun tracks, but the whole soundtrack was solid and the battle themes kept me appropriately hyped. Since I don't want to end this section on a negative, I'll say the negative here, and that is that on perhaps 25 to 30 occasions I noticed either typos or subtitles that didn't match what the characters were saying. This is not the first Bandai Namco game to have this issue, as I observed it in Tales of Berseria as well, although not to this degree. It was egregious and noticeable. I do hope they fix these errors in a later patch. Finally, back to the positive side, we have the voice acting. Erica Mendez and Chris Hackney did solid jobs as Kasane and Yuito respectively, and the cast was well chosen and directed in my opinion. Overall, there were some odd choices and text errors, so I'd say good, not great when it comes to presentation. Nothing though that would ruin the experience for a player that otherwise enjoyed the combat and story. Scarlet Nexus has become perhaps my go-to example of a game that is just really good. I'm not going to be praising it as a masterpiece anytime soon, but the game is entertaining at most stages, and any action RPG fan I think could find something in the game to enjoy. I do wonder how the anime turned out though. Maybe I'll actually watch it at some point. If Scarlet Nexus does interest you though, I say go for it, since I think it's good, and I'm curious if Bandai Namco will go anywhere with this sequel set in the same world or something similar. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on Scarlet Nexus and/or on this video, and while you're down there, leaving a like is the best way to protect this channel's brains from being eaten by the other that is the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you want to see more from me on games, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day, and happy gaming.